Gentlemen, I respectfully ask to present this memorial, believing that the cause which acutes to and sanctions so unusual a movement presents no equivocal claim to public consideration and sympathy. About 2 years since leisure afforded opportunity and duty prompted me to visit several prisons and almshouses in the vicinity, I found near Boston, in the jails and asylums for the poor, a numerous class brought into unsuitable connection with criminals and the general mass of paupers. I refer to idiots and insane persons, dwelling in circumstances not only adverse to their own physical and moral improvement, but productive of extreme disadvantages to all other persons brought in association with them. I applied myself diligently to trace the causes of these evils and sought to supply remedies. As one obstacle was surmounted, fresh difficulties appeared. Every new investigation has given depth to the conviction that is only to be decided. Prompt and vigorous legislation, the evils to which I refer, and which I shall proceed more fully to illustrate, can be remedied. I shall be obliged to speak with great plainness, and to reveal many things revolting to the taste, and from which my woman's nature shrieks with peculiar sensitiveness. But truth is the highest consideration. I tell you what I have seen, painful and shocking as the details often are, that from them you feel more deeply an impenetrative obligation which lies upon you to prevent the possibility of a repetition or continuance of such outrageous acts upon humanity. I come to present the strong claims of suffering humanity. I come to place before the legislation of Massachusetts the condition of the miserable, the desolate, the outcast. I come as the advocate of the helpless, forgotten, insane, and idiotic men and women of being sunk to a condition from which most unconcerned would start with real horror, of being wretched into our prisons and wretched into our almshouses. I must confine myself to few examples, but I am ready to furnish other and more details if simply required. If my pictures are displeasing, coarse, and severe, my subjects, it must be recollected, offer no tranquil, refined, or composing features. The condition of human beings reduced to the extremest states of degradation and misery cannot be exhibited in soft language or an adorned, polished page. I proceed. Gentlemen, briefly call to your attention to the present state of insane person confined within this commonwealth, in cages, closets, cellars, stalls, penned, chained, naked, beaten with rods, and lashed into obedience. It is the commonwealth, not its integral parts, that is accountable for most of the abuses which have lately and still do exist. I repeat it. Is it a defective legislation which perpetuates and multiplies these abuses? In illustration of my subject, I offer the following extracts from my notebook and journal. Springfield. In the jail, one lunatic woman, fearlessly mad, a state pauper, improperly situated, both in regard to the prisoners, the keepers, and herself. It is a case of extreme self-forgetfulness and oblivion to all the deniances of life, to describe which would be to repeat only the grossest scenes. She is much worse since leaving Worcester. In the almshouse of the same town, a woman is apparently only needing judicious care and some well-chosen employment to make it unnecessary to confine her in solitude, in a dreary, unfurnished room. Her appeals for employment and companionship are the most touching. But the mistress replied that she had no time to attend her. Lincoln, a woman in a cage. Medford, one idiotic subject chained and one in a close stall for 17 years. Pepperell, one often double chained, hand and foot. Another violent, several peaceable now. Brookfield, one man caged, comfortable. Granville, one often closely confined, now losing the use of his limbs from want of exercise. Charlemont, one man caged, Savory. One man caged, 2 in the jail, against whose unfit condition the jailers protested. Dedham, the insane, disadvantageously placed in the jail. In the almshouses, 2 females in stalls situated in the main building lie in wooden bunks filled with straw, always shut up. One of these subjects is supposed to be curable. The overseers of the poor have declined giving her a trial at a hospital, as I was informed, on account of expense. Besides the above, I have seen many who a part of a year are chained or caged. The use of chains and cages are all universal. Hardly a town but can refer to some distant period of not using them. Chains are less common. Negligence is frequent. Willful abuse less frequent than sufferings proceeding from ignorance or want of consideration. I encountered during the last 3 months many poor creatures wandering reckless and unprotected through the country, but I cannot particularize. In traversing the state, I have found hundreds of insane persons in a variety of circumstance and condition, many whose situation could not and need not be improved. A less number, but that very large, whose lives are the saddest pictures of human sufferings and degradation. I'll give a few illustrations, but description fades before reality. Men of Massachusetts, I beg, I implore, I demand pity and protection for these of my suffering, outraged sex. Fathers, husbands, brothers, I would supplicate you for this boon. But what do I say? I dishonor you, I divest you. At once your Christianity and humanity, does this appeal distrust? If it comes burdened with a doubt of your righteousness in this legislation, then blot it out. Will I declare confidence in your honor, not less than your humanity? Here you will put away the cold, calculating spirit of selfishness and self-seeking. Lay off the armor of local strife and political opposition. Here and now, for once forgetful of the earthly and perishable, come up to these halls and conservate them, with one heart and one mind to the works of. Gentlemen, I commit to you this sacred cause. Your action upon this subject will affect the present and future condition of hundreds and thousands. In this legislation, as all things may, you exercise the wisdom is the breath of the power of God. Respectfully submitted, D.L. Dix, 1834.